Vector the Crocodile. Is he really Sonic's oldest friend? Is he Sonic's first Christian character? And what's he listening to on those headphones? Those questions and more will be answered in this video. Now, Sonic was designed to be cool. He has a definitive X factor, and his look and attitude has resonated with fans since 1991. But he isn't alone. Many other Sonic characters have that same aura, that same vibe. My personal favourite Sonic character is a guy who is pretty much effortlessly aura farming every time he appears. The GOAT, Vector the Crocodile. If you want to talk cool, Vector's nonchalant attitude, his dedication to music, his dance moves, his retro but stylish cassette tape and headphones combo help set him apart from the rest of the Sonic cast and establish him as the coolest of cats. I've always taken a real shine to Vector, hence the channel name. I was originally a huge fan of the Reptiles' oh-so-90s original design, which stood apart from the rest of the mammalian cast, but I've since come to really appreciate Vector's beaming personality too, and his mysterious backstory as perhaps Sonic's first certified religious cast member adds an extra layer of intrigue on top too. In this video, I want to run through the entire history of Vector from his origins as a buddy that predates Tails, right through to his more recent appearances. If you enjoy Sonic content, please subscribe to the channel. I'm on a mission to reach the big 60k real soon. Thank you to everyone who's ever checked out one of my videos, it does mean a lot. I've got a ton of videos planned, including more character deep dives and more of my Sonic Book Club videos. I hope you'll join me for any upcoming projects. Big thanks also to Mish Koz for recording some segments for this video. Please check out his channel too for some fascinating videos on Wario, Donkey Kong and other fun Nintendo stuff. Now, without further ado, let's get going. During the development of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, which released in 1991, a lot of different ideas for the character of Sonic and his world were being thrown about by SEGA. One of the original concepts for Sonic the Hedgehog was for him to be the lead singer in a band. What could be more cool than that? As such, there's early concept artwork showing Sonic singing his heart out with his bandmates, and in the background you can see an early, bulkier version of Vector the Crocodile with his signature headphones rocking out on the keyboard. We don't know exactly when this piece of concept artwork is from, but whatever the case, it must be from 1990 or 1991 by the latest, and that means that Vector predates every single Sonic character except for Sonic himself, Dr. Robotnik, and I guess Flicky, at least conceptually. So technically, Vector is Sonic's oldest buddy. There is more concept artwork of the band. An early idea was for the band to feature fairly heavily in the first game. Concept art exists showing Vector and the rest of the band were going to appear alongside the initial SEGA logo, were going to be rescued by Sonic one by one after each boss fight, and were going to feature in the ending of the game. None of this eventually came to pass. A second idea relegated the band to appear only in the game's sound test screen, but even that idea had to be scrapped in the end to make space on the cartridge for the SEGA soundbite that appears at the start of the game that took up an astonishing 1/8 of cartridge space. SEGA! Remnants of this band concept exist in some of the older games, but Vector never made it into any of them. They did, however, make it into the Sonic the Hedgehog story comic, a promotional manga released in the Japanese Mega Drive fan magazine to coincide with Sonic the Hedgehog's initial release. Now let's just pause for 1 second. Obviously, Vector's initial design is quite different to the classic Vector that would eventually emerge, but I think it still has some charm. The headphones, I think, are Vector's key feature, and they really tie his design together. Now, sometime before 1992, Vector was redesigned by legendary Sonic artist Naoto Oshima, sporting a new slimmed-down physique and a small, portable cassette player strapped to his waist. Vector's classic design, as we all know it, was born, somewhat reminiscent of Ben Alligator from Disney's Fantasia. Vector was officially named and introduced to the world in a couple of cameo appearances in the Sonic the Hedgehog Shogakukan Study Magazine, a semi-educational magazine for Japanese primary school children. Funnily, Vector's name is transliterated as Hector in katakana in his first appearance. I wonder if this was a mistake or if he was originally called Hector.
Look at me, Hector.
1992 was evidently a big year for Vector because he almost made his video game debut as well. Unused sprites of Vector and indeed the rest of the band were found in the arcade game SEGA Sonic Brothers, a puzzle game which the cutting room floor derisively says features official Sonic recolors long before the conception of DeviantArt. The game itself was only ever location tested in Japan and never actually saw a wider release because it's not particularly good. It looks like Vector and Co. are designed to be freed by Sonic in the game and then cheer him on, but you know you're officially an obscure character if you are a scrapped element hidden deep within the game files of an unreleased game. Of course, it would be in 1995's Knuckles Chaotix that Vector would finally be coronated as a canon member of the Sonic the Hedgehog cast. A spin-off game and flagship title for Sega's 32X add-on system, Knuckles Chaotix saw players controlling two characters at once, tethered together by two rings that acts like a kind of rubber band. The cast of the game saw some forgotten characters re-emerging from obscurity into the forefront. Mighty the Armadillo, who had starred alongside Sonic in the Sega Sonic arcade game, Charmy the Bee, who had appeared in the aforementioned Shogakukan manga, and of course Vector the Crocodile, joined Knuckles and a brand new character, SBO the Chameleon, on a grand adventure. The crew are framed as friends of Knuckles's, without much more depth, who originally want to help him protect and patrol Carnival Island, a huge amusement park where the game is set. The island is under attack from Dr. Robotnik, and the game starts with most of Knuckles' buddies being imprisoned in combi confiners. Now personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Knuckles Chaotix's gameplay, but Vector has the ability to climb up walls and dash through the air, and he also jumps in a delightful donut shape, which I think makes him one of the most fun and competent characters to play as. He also has an amazing idle pose, rocking out to some tunes on his cassette player. As is often the case with the older games, the Japanese story is significantly more bizarre than the US one that I've just recounted. In the Japanese manual, the island that the game takes place on suddenly rises out of the ocean, and there is some evidence that the island may be home to a long-lost civilization linked somehow to the Master Emerald. Knuckles travels there as the guardian of the Master Emerald and finds that Robotnik has already set up camp and imprisoned a group of ragtag adventurers, aka Vector and the others, who he saves and works with to defeat Robotnik. It's not just the story, but also the characterization of everybody, which differs between the US and Japanese manuals. Vector's profile in the US manual is pretty basic.
This cool croc loves the rush of running when he isn't jamming with his friends, doing fancy footwork to the tunes on his headset, or investigating the local food courts.
But in the Japanese manual, it's significantly more intriguing.
He is boundlessly cheerful and quite an optimist. However, he actually has a stronger sense of camaraderie than anyone else, and has the strength and kindness to face up to any challenge. He believes in the existence of God, and came to this island after hearing the news about an island of miracles.
This quote has led Sonic fans to imagine Vector as Sonic's first overtly religious character, and you'll see little factoids all over the internet stating that Vector is a devout Christian and stuff like that. It certainly makes for an utterly fascinating backstory. It seems though like the description may have been lost in translation somewhat. Ian Flynn, writer for the Archie and IDW comic books and resident Sonic expert, has this to say about Vector's religious convictions.
Part of that is the context of the translation. I don't think it's so much as he saw it in the Judeo-Christian version of God, or as more of a miraculous event from divine beings. I think that's what the translation is going for.
It's also a Blues Brothers reference.
Yeah, that's the thing. Recently, art came out of early designs for Vector where he is very clearly designed after the Blues Brothers.
Yes.
Knowing that Sega were deeply inspired by American pop culture when designing Sonic and his world, essentially Vector's spiritual quest is interpreted by Flynn to be a rather badly executed reference to the Blues Brothers, where the phrase, "we're on a mission from God," is a bit of a meme.
We're on a mission from God.
Early Vector concept art showing him dressed in Blues Brothers garb seems to be evidence of this. Whatever the case, the Encyclopedia profile for Vector, which was penned by Flynn, frames him as more of a paranormal investigator.
The once lanky reptile is a spirited investigator. He was drawn to the island by tales of supernatural mysteries.
Now, ultimately, although Flynn has technically canonized his interpretation of Vector's background, different interpretations exist, and you can roll with whatever you want to. Knuckles Chaotix was unfortunately Vector's only appearance for a long time, and after the release of Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast, fans wondered what a modern Vector the Crocodile might look like. Any curiosity was answered in 2003 when Sonic Heroes released. Featuring a whopping 12 playable characters, the game heralded the return of the Chaotix with a modern redesign. Vector had evolved beyond his lanky frame and was now pretty swole and sported a brand new signature gold chain around his neck. Crocodiles are pretty chonky in real life, so the new look was quite fitting. And of course, Vector retained his signature headphones. I think Vector is one of those characters who looks equally great in both his classic and modern form. In Sonic Heroes, you played as 3 characters at once, encompassing a team that included a fast character, a strong character, and a character who could fly. Vector was deemed Team Chaotix's strong guy, while SBO was the fast one, and Charmy, of course, was the flying member of the team. There was a minor level of controversy at the time because some felt that Vector's role should have been filled by Mighty the Armadillo, who was traditionally the strongest Chaotix member, but I think that is all ancient history now. The game's director, Takashi Iizuka, decided that the best approach to reintroducing the Chaotix, who were pretty obscure characters at the time to be fair, was actually just to treat them as new characters effectively. The Chaotix from this point on are portrayed as members of the Chaotix Detective Agency, with Vector as the boss. Weirdly, this does actually kind of create a bridge to Knuckles Chaotix because SBO's backstory in the game positioned him as a detective of sorts. One major new character trait that Vector was bestowed with in Sonic Heroes was a love of money above all else, and you can see that expressed in cartoony detail in the game. I quite like the subtlety of the characterization, because Vector isn't a malicious, greedy dude like Wario or Mr. Krabs. In fact, his detective agency has always struggled financially, and that's partly because the crew often embark on investigations free of charge, making them eternally on the brink of bankruptcy and strapped for cash. Vector's character profile in Sonic Generations sums it up quite well.
Head honcho of the Chaotix Detective Agency, Vector is a croc with attitude. Despite his scaly exterior and often aggressive manner, deep down, Vector has a kind heart. While he may seem like he's only about the money, he always helps those in need for free.
I see Vector as a character who views himself as a bit of a business mogul and thus obsessed with money at face value, but he never ever lets that get in the way of doing the right thing. I've never found this money-loving side of Vector off-putting. In fact, it's a little endearing considering the circumstances. Now, to wrap up Sonic Heroes, in what is a nice nod to Vector's origins, the Chaotix do a team attack where they perform a small musical number. Oh, and Vector can breathe fire too? What? I don't remember this cropping up ever again. As far as Vector in the video game series goes, that's pretty much everything there is to say. Ever since Sonic Heroes, Vector has remained a fairly prominent member of the ever-increasing cast of Sonic characters. He's kept his design and personality largely intact since then. The only thing I'd say is, as the epitome of cool, every new drip that Vector rocks looks awesome. Shoutouts in particular to DJ Vector, One Piece Vector, and Film Noir Vector. Outside of the game series, Vector has graced the pages of US and UK Sonic comics, and they've traditionally interpreted his character slightly differently from the games. Over here in Sonic the Comic, Vector was positioned as the leader of the Chaotix, who are a kind of superhero squad and protectors of the Special Zone, a bizarro parallel dimension accessible via lampposts. Vector is generally the most level-headed of the Chaotix crew, and one of his main character traits is that he's something of a smarty pants. He has his own laboratory at Chaotix HQ, and in one issue, he visits a scientific facility staffed entirely by other crocodiles. I wonder if any of these guys are his relatives. There's also a fun storyline where Vector is mutated into a giant dragon-like creature. Pretty cool form. Sonic the Comic also gave us the most important snippet of Vector lore by sharing what he listens to on his headphones. None other than Elton John's Crocodile Rock. Vector also has a long and storied history in the defunct Archie comic book series. In the Archie universe, Vector was originally an orphan from Down Under, aka Archie's version of Australia, who leaves his home in search of adventure and finds himself knocking heads with Knuckles on the floating island, before becoming buddies with him. The Chaotix first come together as a ragtag team led by Knuckles in the Knuckles Chaotix adaptation comic, and remain together under Knuckles' leadership, with Vector as the number 2 in charge. Oh, look, Archie made the same Elton John joke. There's 2 funny details worth noting about Archie's version of Vector. First, he tried hard to disguise his down under accent by speaking in street lingo. Second, Archie does attempt to bridge the gap between classic and modern Vector by explaining that while Vector was traditionally the fastest of the Chaotix members, he had Mighty become his personal trainer to transform him into a natty beefcake after catching a beating from, well, pretty much everybody. Archie and Fleetway may be long gone, but IDW has been waving the comic book flag in the Sonic department, and they've generally done a great job with their portrayal of everyone, including Vector. Sticking pretty closely to his in-game personality, in IDW comics, we really get to see Vector and the Chaotix leaning into their detective personas, which is always charming. There's lots of fun buddy cop / A-team vibes from the gang. We get to see the crew doing their research, celebrating their victories, and kicking some ass in equal measure. It's great stuff. I like the way that, like the Scooby-Doo gang, they like to unravel mysteries, which offers a refreshing change of pace from the more action-oriented Sonic and Knuckles stuff. One mini thing to note is that Vector is older than most of the rest of the Sonic crew, and while romance is generally a bit of a no-no for other Sonic characters, IDW has portrayed Vector as a little bit smitten with Vanilla, aka Cream's mum. What do you think about this canon ship? Pretty cute in my opinion. Now finally, Vector also makes a one-off appearance in Sonic Boom, which I finally watched and I have to say, thoroughly enjoyed. In Boom, he's a solo detective, no sign of Espio and Charmy, with a bit of an attitude, and his design is largely unchanged, except he's swapped out his signature headphones for a badass leather jacket and a cheeky little tattoo. Gotta admit, I think he needs the headphones. And that just about wraps things up. Thanks for joining me for this Vector glazing session. He's always been my favourite Sonic character, so covering him has been a long time coming and it's been an honour. As always, if you've got a character in mind you're itching for me to talk about, please leave me a comment and I'll add it to my list. Thanks again to Mish for lending his voice to this video too. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time.